Scotland doesn't wait for perfect weather. It gives you mist, wind, drama. And somehow, that makes it even better. There's something about the Scottish Highlands that feels ancient, like the land remembers everything. Today we're heading deep into Glen Nevis to hike one of Scotland's most dramatic waterfalls, Steall Falls. Not just for the view, but for the journey to get there. Come along with us as we drive up the glen, hike the trails, and see the beautiful falls. The Scottish Highlands are amongst the oldest landscapes in Europe, shaped by volcanoes, torn by tectonic fault lines, and sculpted by glaciers. Today we stepped into that landscape, carved by ice, shaped by fire, and steeped in legend. Today we left Fort Augustus and drove deep into the Highlands, towards waterfalls, mountains, and a little bit of movie magic. We drove southwest towards Fort William, often called the outdoor capital of the UK. The landscape here was carved over millions of years by glaciers, which is why everything feels oversized and dramatic. The mist moving through the mountains, that's just classic Highland weather. Leaving Fort Augustus, we followed the Great Glen, a massive geologic fault line known as the Great Glen Fault. This valley slices across Scotland from coast to coast, formed hundreds of millions of years ago as tectonic plates shifted and glaciers later carved the landscape even deeper. What looks like rolling beauty is actually the scar of immense geologic force. The Highlands feel ancient because they are. They are amongst the oldest mountains in Europe. Glen Nevis is one of the most dramatic glens in Scotland, carved by glaciers during the last ice age. But Glen Nevis is not just shaped by geology, it is shaped by story. Highland folklore tells of giants who once roamed these hills. One legend speaks of a giant named Angus who fell in love with a fairy woman of the glen. When she was taken from him, he wandered the mountains in grief. His sorrows became rivers, his tears carved valleys. In landscapes this powerful, stories feel believable. The road into Glen Nevis winds like a ribbon through the mountains. One lane, no guardrails, just rock, sky, and the quiet presence of centuries-old hills. This is where the journey begins. Not at the trailhead, but in the mind, choosing to leave everything behind for a few hours of walking. As you drive deeper into the glen, the landscape starts to close in. The mountains rise sharply on both sides. The river twists through the valley floor. And at the very end of the road is where the hike begins. This isn't a long hike, just a few kilometers each way, but it's known for being one of the most scenic short walks in the Highlands. Steall Falls is tucked away in Glen Nevis, near Fort William in Scotland. It's actually the second highest waterfall in Scotland, with a dramatic 120-meter drop. And the best part? You have to hike through a stunning gorge to get there. The first few minutes are calm. Birds call to each other, a soft breeze shifts the leaves. You breathe a little deeper, notice the smell of the wet earth and the sound of the water starting to grow louder. There's something deceptive about the beginning of the trail. It starts quietly. A gravel path, trees arching overhead, the River Nevis flowing gently beside you. For a moment, it feels like an easy walk. But Glen Nevis has never been just a gentle place. We're hiking towards Steall Waterfall, one of the highest waterfalls in Scotland, hidden deep within the Nevis Gorge at the foot of Ben Nevis. And like much of the Highlands, it makes you earn the view. The trail follows a dramatic gorge carved by glacier meltwater. As the trail begins gently, weaving through the woodlands, for the first few minutes it feels calm, almost quiet. But then, the sound of the river grows louder. You start to realize you're walking along the River Nevis, and the further you go, the more dramatic it becomes. Then the trail changes. Rocks replace roots. Narrow ledges hug the gorge. Below, the River Nevis churns and crashes, carving its story into stone. The hike to Steall Falls is not long. It's not the most technically difficult in Scotland, but it feels immersive. You don't simply observe the Highlands here, you move through them. You balance on rock shaped by glaciers. You cross water fed by volcanic peaks. You stand beneath a waterfall born of rain, gravity, and time. And when you walk back through the gorge, something shifts. The landscape hasn't changed, but you have. Because Glen Nevis doesn't just show you beauty. It reminds you how small you are, and how extraordinary it is to stand in a place that has endured for hundreds of millions of years. This is where the path gets interesting. As you move deeper into the gorge, the landscape grows wilder. The walls rise, closing the sky above. Every step feels earned. Every turn reveals a new detail. A fern clinging to a rock, the shimmer of water droplets in the sun. Walking here is quiet, but it's not peaceful. It's alive. Alive with energy, with motion, with the raw power of the elements shaping every cliff, every curve, and every stone. in today's wet, misty conditions, the classic Highlands weather, this section feels especially adventurous. It's safe if you move carefully, but it demands attention. The trail narrows as it hugs the edge of the gorge. On one side, rock and moss-covered cliffs. On the other, a drop down to the rushing river below. You can feel the power of the water carving its way through the rock. This landscape wasn't built gently. With typical Scottish weather, damp, windy, unpredictable, it felt even more dramatic. As the gorge begins to open up, you can sense you're getting closer. The valley widens, the light changes, and then you see it. Our goal for the day, Steall Waterfall, one of Scotland's highest waterfalls, dropping 120 meters. 120 meters of water, plunging down the cliff face into the valley below. The sound echoes, the spray cools your face. It's overwhelming, humbling, and beautiful. Steall Waterfall is fed by the waters of the Nevis Gorge, and in rainy weather like today, it's even more powerful. The Gaelic word steall means spout or jet, a fitting name for a waterfall that seems to burst from the mountainside. The water spills down the cliff face in a long, white ribbon, crashing onto the rocks below. From a distance, it looks delicate, but as you get closer, you feel the force of it. There's something incredibly calming about standing here. The scale of the cliffs, the openness of the valley, the constant movement of the water. It doesn't feel like a tourist attraction. It feels like you've stumbled onto something ancient. Towering above it all is Ben Nevis. At 1,345 meters, Ben Nevis is the highest peak in the United Kingdom. But long before it was measured, it was feared. Its name comes from Gaelic and is often interpreted as the Venomous Mountain, or the mountain with its head in the clouds. Geologists believe that Ben Nevis is the remains of an ancient volcano that erupted around 350 million years ago before collapsing inward. What stands today is the hardened core of that volcano. And then there's this, The famous Ware Bridge. 3 cables stretched across the River Nevis. 1 for your feet, 2 for your hands. No safety harness, no backup plan, just balance and trust. Okay, this is a thing. Dun, dun, da, 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 da. Okay, it'd be good not to fall. Okay. With the river rushing underneath, it's equal parts thrilling and slightly terrifying. Not great. Okay. Don't look down. Do look down. Brain, I'm getting mixed signals here. Okay. Suspended above the River Nevis, with the wind pushing and the water rushing below, it felt like a proper Highland adventure. Oh, that's not allowed. You are not allowed to spin under my feet. Oh. Okay. This is not one of my better ideas. Okay. Okay, well, I regret that a little. Is there another way back? No, there really isn't. Here goes nothing. Weighs a lot. If this landscape feels familiar, that's because it probably is. The nearby Glenfinnian Viaduct, just down the road from here, was used in the Harry Potter films as part of the Hogwarts Express route. In films like Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, you can see the train crossing that iconic curved bridge through the Highlands. The Glen Nevis area has been used in several films due to its untouched dramatic scenery. Nearby areas were featured in Braveheart and Harry Potter. The raw Highland landscape, especially in mist, creates that cinematic, otherworldly atmosphere. This valley served as the filming location in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, where the dramatic Black Lake scenes were filmed. It's no coincidence filmmakers choose this region. The Highlands don't need special effects. Hiking to Steall Falls isn't just about seeing a waterfall. It's about the walk through the gorge, the shifting light, the sound of the water echoing off of stone. It's about slowing down long enough to notice where you are. In a world that moves constantly, places like this don't. They just exist. And for a little while, you get to exist with them. But what made this day powerful wasn't just the geology, or the legends, or the movie trivia. It was sharing it, standing together in a valley shaped by ice, fire, and time. Thanks for joining us on our hike through the Highlands, and see you next time.